This morning, I just wanted to jump on and talk about a few things that are just been really going on in my head this week. I know in a couple of videos I talked about learning in your head and then learning in your heart. A lot of times we're learning things conceptual, theoretically in our minds. I don't want to get too deep into the neuroscience and psychology of it, but you're learning things in your frontal lobe. It's logical, it's conceptual, it's easy to understand. But then we get things into our heart. When you're learning something theoretically for the first time, whatever that is, we could relate that to school topics, history, math, any topic you pick. How you process that information, I would compare it to being just very dry. It lacks substance because you don't have understanding. When you're learning something and you're talking to somebody who you know is an expert in that topic, let's say maybe you're in a math class and your math teacher has at least a master's degree and they're describing geometry to you for the first time. And you're learning these things and they're talking to you in such a fluid way that it's almost boring. I'm gonna say almost boring, it is boring, right? But they are a lot of times talking to you and it sounds very simple, it sounds easy. Majority of what they say, you'll pick out the concepts, the theories, the bullet points. It almost makes you feel like you have an understanding. Have like maybe, let's say, a framework, a foundational framework of understanding of what that person is explaining to you. Then you start asking more questions. They start giving you answers. And those answers, a lot of times, at least for me, I find, go like this. in one ear, out the other. Because why is that? It's because they are talking to you from this level of understanding. They know it. Their past theories, their past concepts, they have what I call, again, a working functional understanding. You're working on the theoretical, conceptual understanding of what they're telling you, but they're speaking to you from, again, this functional understanding. They've learned all these different theories and concepts that intertwine with what they're telling you, and you don't know these things. You don't know what you don't know, but your brain's trying to fill in the gaps based on your level of understanding to make sense of it all. And I guess why I'm trying to describe this example to you is because in my career, as I've talked to you guys, I'm a spiritual person, right? And I've talked to a lot of people about spirituality, their level of understanding as it relates to their, we'll use the word faith. And a lot of times when I ask them these questions, you're looking for theory. I mean, this is not something we say consciously, but we are looking for consistency, looking for, I do A, B, C, looking for cause and effect. And that's something that we always look for. I think it's just our human natures, but especially when you're learning from this conceptual, theoretical standpoint, when you don't have the full picture. Again, we all have these times where we're talking to someone who's a master of this topic. In learning, it takes a strong degree of humility. And this goes back to other videos that I've talked about where, know what you don't know. And then once you realize what you don't know, allow yourself to receive those things as you ask masters or people that are further along than you in this topic. In my conversations with these people, notice that sometimes it's really hard for us to focus. When someone's talking from a functional understanding and they're talking because they understand ABC, but understand AA, AB, AC, AD, AE, and then to B. And they're kind of skipping past, in their mind now, are trivial details. But for you, they're actually very crucial. But I will say this, a lot of times these people are saying those little trivial details, but we are not in a position to absorb them or hear them. When you're talking to someone, know that they're a master of what they're telling you. And we need to focus on necessarily the big things. Sometimes you need to hyper-focus on what I call the dull, the boring, at least at face value, the offensive. Something that makes you defensive, makes you guarded, that maybe hurts your feelings, hurts your ego a little bit. This is easier said than done, but when someone's talking to you like, you need to do this is something that I've done, and you're like, oh, I already do that. Oh, I already know that. Again, our ego's coming in, our hubris is coming in, kind of brush those things off, when in reality, those are probably the things that you need to do or you need to learn. Maybe you know them here, so you're brushing over them, but you actually need to apply them now. You're talking to someone who you know is a master, and maybe you have a good conceptual understanding of something as you're talking to these people. One thing that I have found is that if I say to myself, I already know that, yeah, okay, well, what about this? I need to take a step back and look at that maybe a little deeper to more of a practical understanding. This is something I don't have the neural connections of how this actually looks in real life. That's something you probably need to get out there and actually apply. Even those things, step back on those things that maybe make you offended. A book that's coming to mind is by Ryan Holiday. You guys might maybe heard of him. He's kind of like the modern day Stoic, the SME master of Stoicism. He elaborates a lot on the writings of Marcus Aurelius, which again, that book is super good. The book that Ryan Holiday wrote is The Obstacle is the Way. The concept of the book is when we come across these topics or these minute trivial details that are boring, dull, or offensive, they usually are the answer. And that's the whole point of the book. The obstacle is the way. And a lot of times it can be the thing that's the hardest for us to do, or the thing that we just don't want to do. But I think more the obstacle I have found is, again, these things that we just don't necessarily perceive as even relevant. My challenge to you guys today is, if you're learning something and you are even an expert, at least in your mind, take a step back and say, I know I don't know everything, so what don't I know? And again, the dull, the boring, the offensive. The obstacle is the way. When you fact a concept and you can't elaborate on that simple thing for a long time, really dissecting it, you can't do that, then that might be the obstacle. That is the way. That is the answer. That is what you need to work on and develop. And I've said again a million times, this is just something I really am trying to convey to you, because this is something that I really struggled with. I'll be personally honest with you. I came from a background where, and maybe you guys can relate with this, my parents didn't communicate a lot. They didn't explain things to me. I'm getting kind of sensitive here, but I was more of a counselor to a lot of the people in my life at a very young age. And I had to grow up, and I had to even pretend that I understood things that I didn't. And I think as I developed, it created this kind of persona where I know everything, but like I'll go learn it, but then I learn it at a very surface level. And then I would convey that in some way, shape, or form to another person, thinking that I was an expert at it just because I knew a couple little things. And I hope this makes sense. Again, know what you don't know. Right? Look for the dull, look for the boring, look for the offensive when you're learning something. Acknowledge when you're here, right? You're learning it theoretically, conceptually, and you're talking to somebody that is talking from a functional, practical perspective, someone who's been practicing this for years and years and years. And you'll notice this, again, these things sound very trivial, very simple, but if you really take a step back, you're like, man, I really don't understand what that means. That's my thought for today. Know what you know what you don't know, as always. Keep being real learners. I hope this is incited some learning in your guys' minds today. In the comments, share anything that you guys are learning currently. And we talked about this is a real learning channel, so we're being real. Do you agree or disagree with what I'm saying? Put that in there. If you haven't liked the video, subscribe, comment, help the algorithm, help spread the learning message. We're just learning together. Again, I'm just a dad learning in real time. All right, guys, have a great day. We'll talk to you soon.